Thank you. Fine. So Java is very simple because a professional programmer can easily learn and use it effectively. Why it is so simple? Because already if you know the basic concepts of object-oriented programming, then it will be very easy. And C++ programmers can easily move to Java with little bit of extra efforts what you can take. So that is the reason, as I mentioned a couple of minutes before, first we learned about C programming little bit, then C++, then we are going to the Java. And as I clearly mentioned, Java will use C syntax, C++ object-oriented features. So that's why it's very simple. Next is secure. See, as we seen yesterday, Java is used or Java is designed such a way that we can use for the or use in the internet. Use in the internet. So what does it mean? So we could able to develop web applications. So because of which, so Java is secured. So it is virus free. It is enabled such a way that it is designed such a way that it is virus free and error free system. Right? So in Java we don't have pointers. Please remember this. In Java we don't have pointers. So that means if someone want to access the address of the variables, or if someone want to access the address of the any functions or any members, they required authorization. That is where security will come into the picture. In C programming, not like that. Say for example, in C programming, what will happen? Let us take an example of C programming. Say for example, if I'm taking a variable called int a, something is wrong. Okay, if I'm taking the variable int a, suppose if I want the address of this, of course, as a programmer, if you make ampersand a, you will get the address. So this is easy for programming purpose. It is very easy, but think about security. Because once we know the members or member functions, so we can easily get the address. So this is where the security part is failing in C programming. Right? So in order to avoid this, so there is no concept of pointers in Java. See, you may ask question here. So if there is no concept of pointers in Java, how we are going to access the address? Right? So to access the address with proper authorization, we are going to use the concepts of interfaces. So using interfaces, we are going to study how, or we are going to access the address of the variables, address of the member functions with proper authorization. So that is where we will say Java is a secured language. So why Java is secure? Very simple. Java is designed for internet-based applications, that is web applications. So it is a virus-free as well as error-free system we can develop. And the absence of pointers in Java will make users to access the memory with proper authorization. So this is same point we have written in a different way. The absence of pointers in Java ensures that programmers cannot gain access to the memory locations without proper authorization. So that means if there is no proper authorization, you cannot get the access for the memory. And the next is portable. So what does it mean? The programs easily can be moved from one computer system to another and anywhere, anytime. So in our computer science, info science terminology, we will say write once, use anywhere. So that means you write one program in this computer system, you can use same thing in anywhere, anytime, in any other system. Say for example, if I am using Windows XP, I have written Java program. Now I am upgrading my operating system to Windows 10. So it is not going to harm. Say for example, today I'm using i3 processor. I want to go to i7 processor. So it is not going to harm. You can use the same program there also. So that means changes in the upgrade of OS, processor or system resource is not going to affect the Java program. Right? So why it has become so popular? Because it is going to connect through internet. So that means we could able to develop web applications which can connect through internet, right? So this is called portable. Next is, yes, as you know, object oriented. So Java is object oriented. So Java extracts the features of C++. Java extracts the features of C++, right? And so though it uses the features of C++, it is not going to compatible with any other language. Like you cannot compatible with you cannot write Java code or Java source code. It will be compatible with any portable, any other languages. So suppose if you have one program in C++, you have one program in Java, you can integrate both of them very easily, right? So it is very clean. It is something like a blank slate, what we call. So where it is very clean, usable, and pragmatic approach for the objects. So that means you can easily access all the members. You can easily access all the members from the basic, right? So it's a pure object oriented. So everything is going to work on the objects. Everything is going to work on the objects, right? So whatever you're going to do the coding, it will be between the objects and classes. And it is very simple, easy to extend, right? And Java comes with extensive packages, extensive set of classes, which you can make use of in your program using the concepts of inheritance. So basically, it is a pure object-oriented language. See, when you may ask questions, sir, then what do you mean to say like C++ is not pure? See, really not, because in C++ what will happen is, of course, we are using the object-oriented programming features. We are using the object-oriented programming features, but they are not going to be up to the mark. I mean, we cannot implement 100% full because we cannot connect to internet. We cannot develop web applications properly. We cannot develop what you call two-stage architecture or three-stage architecture like client server, server client, client server, system architecture, all those. Like, there are some limitations in C++ which has overcome in the Java. So that's why it is called as object-oriented language. Then comes the feature of robustness. So as I said yesterday, so it is a multi-platform environment because, as I said, so if you are using Intel processor, use the Intel processor. If you are using AMD processor, use the AMD processor. If you are using Asus, use the Asus. If you are using NVIDIA, use the NVIDIA. Not a problem. So it is going to work same as it is in all the platforms. So that is the reason Java is called as multi-platform environment of the web places extraordinary demands on the program, because the program must execute reliably in a variety of systems. You can see that first point I'm reading. So that means the programs which are written in Java are robust in nature, which will run or which will work on any kind of platform environment. Any kind of platform environment, right? And in order to get this reliability, we are going to do some kind of exception handlings, which will really help us in program development. That's what we mean to say, find your mistakes early in program. So that is, exception handling will help us to develop a proper program in Java, right? And most common errors will be programming errors will be solved in Java there itself when you are typing, because Java is a strictly typed language. Java is a strictly typed language. What does it mean? At the time of compilation itself, it comes to know if there is any errors. So at the time of runtime, again, it will cross-check your coding. So then it will generate the final output. That's what I said. First, it will convert your Java program into bytecode. Then bytecode will be converted into machine level code. So initially it will be compiled, then it will be interpreted. So now what is happening? So because of which Java is becoming a very strictly typed language. Java is becoming very strictly typed language. So this is what I'm supposed to say yesterday. Why we are doing multiple types of compilation and interpretation? Because we want to make this language as a robust, so which you can make use anywhere once it is written. Right? So, and another best example with respect to robustness is your memory management and exceptional handling. Memory management and exceptional handling, right? All right. So usually what will happen in C, C++, it is like a free manually you can allocate the memory, manually you can process the memory. As I said, like you can use the pointers, you can do whatever you want. But Java is not going to be like that unless if you have a proper authentication, you cannot do anything. You cannot do anything, right? And also, I mean, Java is going to use automated memory management system, the automated memory management system. So by which if there is a variable which is not useful in your program, it will deallocate the memory space for that. Deallocate the memory space for that. So what does it mean is, say for example, let me explain you with example so that you can understand very easily. Right. So first I'm just writing one C program here. So I'm writing like int a comma b comma c comma d, and I'm just reading a and b value. Just assume I'm just calculating the value of c equals to a plus b, and then print c. Print c. Now what is happening? See here, I'm not using d at all. I'm not using d at all, but still it will be allocated with some memory by C compiler. C compiler. So it is not going to free this memory. It is not going to free this memory. Whereas if I write Java program, saying that int a comma b comma c comma d, c equals to a plus b, then print the c value. Same program I have written in Java. Now what is going to happen? Because we are not using this d, it is not going to allocate any memory. See, initially it will be allocated. Then it will deallocate memory after compilation. So after compilation, it will deallocate the memory. So why? Because D is not really required in the program. So this is how memory management will differ from C, C++ to Java. So that is where we are calling it the robust language. It's a robust language. Then exception handling. Another advantage with the robustness, exception handling. As I said, divided by zero. So what will happen here is, say for example, if I am calculating the value of a by b in C programming. So after running the program, it will say that, hey, b value should not be 0. But here in Java, we have concept of exception handling. So we are going to write the exception handling. If you put enter value of b equals to 0, there itself it will say b should not be 0. So that is the difference. So until you execute the entire program, you should wait here. Whereas here it is not going to be the scenario. So at the time of execution or runtime itself, I mean compilation itself, it will say that. So that most of the errors will be reduced. That is what it means to say. Yes, some question. Sir, but it will give an error in C. So it will give error in C. When you will get it? When you will get Ashish error? When you will get error? Variable not used for D you are telling. Okay. So variable not used, but memory is allocated. If you see, that is going to be a warning. If you just say yes also, the program will get executed and memory will be allocated. But whereas in Java, program will get executed, memory is not going to be allocated. If it is allocated also, it will deallocate. That is the difference, because memory management we are not seeing in the front end. I mean, we are not seeing directly. If you understand the memory management which is happening at the back end, so you are going to study memory management in your CO or operating system. What is the difference is, of course, what you said is correct. It will say variable not used or variable not required, but still it will allocate memory for you. So the memory will be freezed. Some memory will be allocated to D. Whereas in Java, it will allocate it. If you are not using it, it will deallocate the memory immediately. That's what I mean to say. Hope I answered your question. So memory management is going to differ. That's what I mean to say. Right. And exception handling, it is not there in C programming, as all of us know. Right. So next is multi-threaded. So as I said, Java is allowing multi-threaded programming. Java will allow multi-threaded programming. So what is thread? Basically, thread is a piece of instruction. Thread is a piece of instructions, right? So now what is going to happen is in Java, you can write multiple threads. That means multiple instructions which will interact with each other, or you can write multiple programs which can connect to each other using some network. I'll tell you one best example for this. If you go to software industry, one person is not going to do the project. There will be a team of people who will be doing the project. Now what will happen is, say for example, if I am developing some C programming or C++ programming, so every time what I need to do, so I need to take the code of, say, take an example. If Harshita, Ashish, Yusra, Sumit, 4 members are doing one project in C or C++. So once they develop the project, we need to have one repository. So we need to ask every time, Harshita, you put your code in that repository. Sumit, you put your code in the repository. Ashish, you put code in repository. Yusra, you put code in the repository. What is meant by repository? It's a place where we are going to integrate all our code. So after putting in the repository, again we need to execute the entire program to see whether it is working properly or not. So this is how the scenario will be. So what is going to happen because of this? If there is any error after putting into the repository, again we need to distribute that code to someone who did that. Say for example, if Ashish code is having some error, we'll distribute back Ashish code and we will say, Ashish, you continue, or you cross-check your code and correct it. So till that time, what is going to happen? So other 3 has to wait. So this is a kind of problem which we are facing previously. Of course, now C also got some third-party tools which we can integrate. But what is advantage in Java is multi-threading. So it will be connected through network. If all of you are working in the same project, so you start dumping your code. So in backend, it is going to do the verification. That is what we are calling it as testing. You are going to study a subject called software testing in 6th sem. There you will study about unit testing. You will study about module testing. You will study about some kind of testing process, how it will take place. So how this testing is possible? Because all of us are connected through internet. All of us are connected through network. So this network will make us to understand, or to the system will understand how it is helping all the code to execute at the backend and check if there is any error. So that is what multi-threaded programming is going to do. So that is what it is telling in the first. It is going to meet the real world requirements of creating interactive network programs. So Java will allow multi-threaded programming. So where you can simultaneously work with the same program in multiple areas, right? So it is going to be one of the best solution what we have. One of the best feature what we have from the Java, which will help us in developing the interactive systems, developing the interactive systems or connecting with the interactive systems. I'll tell you one best example for this. What is the best example is, I don't know how many of you used online Excel sheets, online Google Sheets, right? Say for example, if I share some Google Sheet to you, so we have 40 plus members in the class. So if all 40 of you are parallelly modifying some data, it will accept. And you can see who are all modifying also. If I am the owner of that form, I can see who are all modifying, what the data you are modifying. It is visible. So that is called multi-threaded. So interactive application with multiple people can work on the same application simultaneously. So that is how it is going to work. Hope I made clear about it. Yeah. So that is what I'm just telling one example. So easy to use approach for multi-threaded programming about the specific behavior of program. So you can see here itself. Let me just pull out one form for you. Google Sheets. So if you go to Google Sheets, yeah. So let me just create one Google Sheet here. All right. Yeah, you can see here, this is one Google Sheet which I created and gave it to 6th sem students. So what they are doing here is, I just asked them to put cross-check their details and put one yes for the last column. Put one yes for the last column. Now everyone is putting at the same time. It is going to accept all the responses. Parallelly, it is accepting all the responses, right? So it will be keep on refreshing. See, you can see here it will be keep on refreshing, saying that. So who is editing? See, you can also get the live data. Last edit was made yesterday at 11:32 a.m. by anonymous. So someone has edited at that time. I can also see who is that anonymous. If I click on this, from which IP it has done, which email ID they have used, all those things. So this is how the multi-threaded programming will interactive applications we can develop using multi-threaded programming, right? Yeah. So next is architecture neutral. So as I said, so it is architecture neutral. So where you no need to worry about whether you're going to use the same machine, same architecture, same processor. So if my program will work if you change my laptop future. So previously we used to get Pentium processor. Now we are getting Intel i3 processor. Later we may get some other processor. So it is not going to worry about the architecture, right? So if you may run the same code today in my machine, it might run in another machine. So it is not going to, you are not going to face any kind of problem. Or if you upgrade your operating system, you upgrade the processor, you change the core system resources, anything, any work you want to do, you do it. So Java is not going to give you an error, right? So JVM will help you according to your system resources. It is going to adopt according to your system resources. It is going to adopt, right? So main the goal of the Java architectural neutral is write once, run anywhere, anytime, forever, right? So suppose if I did some project, maybe way back 20 years back or 15 years back, same code, if I run that in P4 system, now I can run in i3 system or i7 system. If I run on the Windows XP, now I can run on Windows 10. If I run on Windows 10, I can run on Linux. So that means the JVM will help us to adjust according to the situation, So that is called architectural neutral. So that is what we are telling here. So the main problem which most of the programmers face this code longevity and portability. So that has been solved in Java. How long code is going to be active, how long it is going to be portable. So the problem has been faced by the programmers. So which is going to be like we'll write program today, it will run tomorrow or not, even on the same machine or different machine, right? If you do operating system upgrades, processor upgrades, any upgrade you want to do for your system, Java will never say that I am not going to execute. So who is helping us for that? So he is the one who is helping us. That is the reason, if you remember, when I shown the execution, I mean installation of Java. When I shown the installation of Java, yes. So when we install Java, say we have installed 1.7. See, you can see here. So whenever we install this Java, and see, these are all the people who will be helping us to do all those things. It's not simply is going to happen a day. That's why they took almost 15 years to develop this. Not a day or two. They took almost 15 years. So the JVM will be there. So the JVM will help us in doing that. Okay. So that is called architectural neutral. And next is interpreted and high performance. As I said yesterday. So as I said yesterday, so it's an interpreted and compiled language. So as we said, so Java will enable the cross-platform compatibility. So where you can you can combine multiple languages, right? Which is called as Java bytecode. So it will be extended into the machine level code using JVM, right? So Java bytecode, it is converted into machine code to use in the real time. So Java will provide initially one second. As I said yesterday, let us see here. I'll tell you so that you can understand much more easier how it will generated, how it will be used. We'll see. So these are all the theory, but it's very important for your VTU exam. That's why I'm taking and explaining. Otherwise, I could say like you can only prepare. If you get basic ideas, though that you can write in your exam easily. Yeah. So let me explain. First, what will happen is, so let's say for example, if I have Java program, right? So when I compile it, I will get bytecode. How it would be? So the program will be .java. Now this bytecode will be .class file. Then after this bytecode get interpreted to get executable file. So this executable file might be .exe file, or it might be .jvm file, or it might be .jsp file, depending on the program which we are going to write, all those things, right? Now, what we are telling here with respect to interpreted and high performance, see now what will happen once you write the Java code, so it will get compiled and you will get the bytecode. So this class file is sufficient for us to execute. This class file, what we are seeing here, no? So this is sufficient for us to execute our outputs. But still, why we are converting? Because it should convert it into machine level language, right? So it should be converted into machine level because machine has to understand. So that is the reason we are doing the interpreted process, right? So now once the code is being generated into the form of bytecode, and the bytecode will be generated into the system understandable format, that is machine level language, for the compilation. And the code which we are going to get at the last, it is going to be the platform independent code. So it is going to be a very high performance code which we are going to use. So using the just-in-time compiler. So just-in-time, actually you don't have compiler subject. Otherwise you come to know what is just-in-time compiler, what is when it's by at another compiler, Yak compiler, all those things. Of course, we don't require that much in depth, but still. So the Java bytecode will be, so it will be generated such a way that you can directly convert Java bytecode to machine code, which is going to be very high performance code using the just-in-time compiler. So that is what we are telling. So Java code is interpreted, and then you will get the machine level code, which is high performance code, which you can use in the real time. Right. Next is distributed. So Java is designed for the distributed environment using the TCP/IP protocols. Right. Java allows the TCP/IP protocols. So that means once you develop the Java program, so using the extension like .java or using remote method invocation or by creating one URL, you can use that particular program anywhere. You can use anywhere that particular program throughout the network. So once you develop some application using some network, I mean within the network, so that can be used either within the network or on the internet, right? You can use it remotely, right? And you can use multiple programmers at the same time in multiple locations like this. So as I said, an example in software company, that is what happening. Multiple programmers are working on the same location at multiple times. So that is called distributed. Why it is distributed? It will use like network oriented programming, .java files. So whatever it is, remote method invocation, so many concepts of them. So this will help us to make Java as a distributed. So basically Java will allow a protocol called TCP/IP protocol. So what is TCP/IP? Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. So Transmission Control Protocol will help us to access the Java program throughout the network. Whereas Internet Protocol will help us to develop a Java program which we can use it in the internet. Hope you know what is TCP/IP. No need of much explanation on that. Right. So this is called distributed. There is dynamic. So as I said, once you execute the Java program, so objects will be created or .class will be created. So that can be run anywhere. Say for example, I have written a program called A. So the objects which are written in program A can be dynamically executed in program B if both of them are in the same network. right? And dynamically you can update the program code with reference to objects. With respect to objects, you can update the code dynamically. I'm going little fast for this one because this is only theory. You can prepare it and you can write it in your exam. So these 11 points will come for maybe 10 marks or 12 marks or 8 marks. So depends. Yeah. So this is what we are talking till now. So initially we'll be having one Java program, .java file. It will be accessing through Java compiler, which is Java C. Once it executes through compiler, you will get the bytecode, which is .class file. You will get the .class file. And here is the person who is responsible. He is called as Java virtual machine. Java virtual machine. It will be common to your Windows, Linux, Mac. So he is going to take care of the converting your bytecode into machine understandable code. Machine understandable code. So you can see here how it is going to happen. So Java program will be there. There will be a compiler, Java C compiler, which will compile this program and it will generate Java bytecode. So once Java bytecode is processed through interpreter, so it is going to, depending on your operating system, it is going to use the interpreter. So after interpreting that code, you will get the high performance code. You will get the high performance code, which you can use it for the, you use it in the real time as an application. You can use it in the real time as an application. So that is what we are talking all these things. So the code which we are going to get here at the end, will be optimized high performance code, which we can use it directly for the execution. It is an optimized high performance code what we are going to get, right? So that is what we are telling all these things. What is JVM? Like JVM will talk to bytecode, bytecode will come to JVM, right? If it is connected through internet, so there also you can execute your programs. So yeah, so on the fly compilation, that is through internet. So when you have just in time compiler, so it will do at the offline, at the desktop level. Yeah, so you can see here. So this is how it is going to happen. Java source code will be there, compiler will be there. It will compile this program. It will convert into bytecode, that is .class file. Then it will go to the JIT compiler. JIT is nothing but just in time compiler. So it is going to execute this bytecode, and then you will get the native code. That is your executable code. That is your executable code. Yeah, this is C programming. Already we have seen this. I told you this. First you will get object program, object file, then you will get the support files, all those things. Yeah. See, I'm not explaining in depth of this because this is for your understanding we have put. We don't have in the syllabus. Just for your understanding, I'm explaining. Because if I go and explain directly JDK, you cannot understand. That's why we are doing it. Yeah. This is the C programming, right? So we'll be having programmer. You will enter in that program in text editor. When you compile the C file, you will get the object code. So once the object code is executable, you will get the executable code. That is out file, a.out file. Yeah. So to develop Java applications, we require JDK, which is Java Development Kit. Java Development Kit. So the Java Development Kit basically consists of these things. What are the things? One is Java C, which is called as Java Compiler. You will get Java, that is Java Interpreter, JDB, Java Debugger, Applet Viewer, tool to run your applets. What is applets? We'll see in the fifth module. Applet Viewer, Java P to print your Java bytecodes, Java Prof, which is Java Profiler, so which will go and see the whether the code is robust or not. Java Doc, documentation generator, because for every application we need to generate the documentation. Java H, which creates the header files, right? It will take the help of C, C++ and it will create the header files. So next goes for object-oriented programming, how it is going to work. We'll see in the next class that things. So is it clear? Any doubts for anybody? These are the buzzwords of Java. Any doubts or any questions, please ask. I'll pause for a minute, you can ask. I went little fast because it's a theory, you can prepare anytime. I just want to give you an idea. What are they? Clear. Okay. Clear. Okay, so let me just go back to our. Sir, what is the difference between executable and object code? See, executable code, see, object code is system understandable format. So system can understand that object code, so which cannot be understood by the user. See, executable code is, it's a file, it's an executable file. So if you have that executable file, if you just install that, you can use the application. But object code is not going to be an executable file. That means object code only system will understand. We cannot use it in the real time, but executable code we can use it in the real time. So to give best example for this, your .exe files. So we don't know what is there behind the .exe file, right? Say for example, let me just go to same program files here. Now you can see the difference here. See, I have installed Java. How I have installed? Using JDK 1.7. Let me show you so that you can understand very easily. Where is my software? Yeah. Okay, you can see here, this is the JDK 1.7, which is a executable code or executable file. So what is the format of this? So when I see the details of this file, when I see the properties of this file, yes, you can see here, this is a .executable file. This is a .executable file. When I double click on it, it is getting installed. There I am getting so many files. So many files I am getting, right? So these are all the object files. These are all the support files which we are getting. Say for example, I'll take Java C. I'll open this. So open with, where is open? Okay. So I'll just open Java C. Now see, Java C.exe is getting executed. You can see here at the black screen at the top, you can see Java C.exe is getting executed. Why it is executed? Because that is the executable format of your code. So for this, there will be supporting. Let me just go to library or somewhere. I don't have any class files here. Yeah, you can see this also, DLLs. These are all the object files. See, when I open with this, open this, say for example, Notepad I'm opening. Yeah. See, can we able to understand what is this? We cannot understand. This is the system understandable format of your code. System understandable format of your code. But when I use this particular DLL in my program, we will get the executable format of it. So it will just execute it and it will give me the output, whatever is supposed to come. Whatever it's supposed to come, it will give that output. So basically, object file is system understandable file. Executable file is which you can execute and take out the output. Take out the output. Right. So is it clear, Ashish? Object code we will get in C programming, not here. We will get object code in C. Here you will get bytecode.